Welcome back to Doctor Who Week. You know, these past 2 days and the 3 reviews we've done, I've realized one common thread here. I'm not exactly reviewing the best stuff from either the classic or the new series. So, since yesterday was full of classic, and let's face it, not the best stuff I could talk about, let's do some new series stuff and talk about some of the best. And what better way to start than with, well, Blink. Blink is a very special episode of my heart. It's one of my favorites, definitely, still, as the show goes on. But more importantly, it's one of those episodes that's commonly brought up as a great jumping on point, or at least a good showcase show to give to anyone who's never seen it. And I stand by this one perfectly. You don't need to understand much about Doctor Who to watch it, and I've done this a lot. I've shown people who've never seen Doctor Who before this specific episode, and I think the best way it works is simply because it's a Doctor Light episode. Doctor Light's a term that's come up with the new series lately. See, it began with Series 2. Since they added another episode, that being the Christmas special, to the production schedule, and weren't given any more money than the budget they were given for that season, they had to do something slightly drastic and basically try and film double bank an episode, which means to shoot 2 episodes at once. And an easy way to do this is simply have an episode where David Tennant and whoever was playing the companion wasn't necessarily needed. Every season from Tennant's era has this. There's also Companion Light episodes, which is what series 5 and 6 have had. With you'll know these ones because they feature Craig Owens, but we're not going to talk about those today. We're going to talk about what's probably, in my opinion, the best of these Doctor Light episodes. And here's what makes it. Here's why I think this formula could work. And why it really does. Here's why I think this idea works. With a strong story and the ability to sell off who these new characters we're following for only one episode are, you can do something great. But it's also not exactly the best thing. See, it could be really alienating for the series. I've had this mentality. Once I tried to get people to watch this episode and then trying to make them watch more, it's a little tough to get to. For some reason, they just can't wrap their heads around watching new shows. You see, I think the thing is the show gets weird. That's one thing about the show that's commonly brought up and why it's really alienating everyone. It's a weird-ass show at times, featuring head-scratching ideas, odd plot points, and let's face it, some of the goofiest looking aliens imaginable. Which is another reason why this one works. The threat, which is known as the Weeping Angels, who have become one of the more larger fan favorite villains, take that, Slevine, because of their concept. Their concept's so simple. Statues, and when you don't look at them, they become monsters that kill you. Granted, the ways they do kill you vary, but in this episode, the idea is they kill you. Once they touch you, they zap you in the past, and feed off the potential energy from it. To quote the episode, they're the only creatures in the universe that kill you nicely, let you live out your life in the past. Granted, it's a little weird, but also that works with the time travel aspect, technically. Another thing that makes this one work is we like the person we're focusing on, Sally Sparrow. She comes off as an average person with not too much of a weird life, but is thrown into this. It's always kind of fun to watch new people, whether they're companions or just a one-off character, deal with these kinds of things, because it's always cool to see what different reactions we get. She gets the somewhat standard reaction of this is weird, but she's still going along with it to figure out the mystery. Which is great because I know many women like this who would say, fuck that shit, I'm going shopping. Yes, that sounded really sexist, but believe me, I've talked to a couple. This is me quoting them. But why exactly does this one stand out as my favorite? Because of what it manages to do with the Doctor. See, this easily just could have been the Doctor waving around, being seen lightly, and then basically just could have been an episode of a completely different show. But the way it's written, the way it's working, and the way the Doctor plays a role in it, you totally believe it deserves to be part of this show. See, there are times when you watch an episode of something and you just get this slight feeling that the guy had a different use for the script for a completely different series, but used it anyway, only with the barest essentials to make it justify that it's on the show. But still, it works. This is essentially me gushing. I'm not going to really take away from that. But this episode deserves it. It's one of the greatest ones of all time. I'm pretty sure it's up there in the top 200 list that came out in 2009. And also, be prepared to hear me mention that a couple more times in a couple more reviews this week. That's going to play a big role in some praise and possibly some rants, but we're not going to get into it. Let's go with the characters here. We can't exactly focus on Tennant only because of his short time, but he is giving a good performance here. He's playing the Doctor just to the right pitch, and he's simply working with the script. It doesn't seem phoned in. It seems like he's trying his best, but he does realize that all he's doing is playing a small role in a bigger plot. Martha, I like to focus on the companions, but with the Doctor's role so scaled back, Martha's role is even more. The only real service she pays is to make a couple jokes and complain about being zapped back in time without the TARDIS. Yes, that is pretty much all she serves. Not exactly the best introduction for the companion, but companions are something that you just kind of have to go with when you're jumping into the show, classic or new, just randomly watching an episode. Let's move on to Sally Sparrow, though. As I mentioned, she's taking this all for grain of salt as well as she can, but she's still showing fear in general confusion over what's happening, but who wouldn't? She's dealing with aliens that hide as statues. Let's just say her companion, the brother of one of her friends that she meets, who basically introduces what's going on with the hidden message that the Doctor left in all these different movies to make sure Sally hears it. Again, all he really serves he serves a plot point, but still he goes along with Sally, and eventually you see them kind of have a relationship. Again, I think Steve Moffat wrote this episode and is currently the showrunner, realized something very important here. These people weren't going to be big players, so he simply said something. So they said we sent them off from a story, and then just gave them somewhat of a happy ending. This is probably the reason he gets so much praise for it. He knows how to. He doesn't try and set up for a grander story. He simply just tells a good story and get the characters from A to B and make it work. Problems, I can't find any. That's the thing about this. Rewatching it all the time, and to be fair, I'm probably watching it a little bit with nostalgia goggles, so if that's fair, I'm sorry. If it's unfair or not, I'm sorry. I just can't find any problems with it. You're just entranced and waiting to watch what's happening next, even if you have watched it again and again. It's one of those I highly recommend if you've never seen the show before, and if you somehow haven't seen it and you're currently getting into the show, it's definitely something to look forward to. Well, that's about it. This review's been a little shorter than usual, but hell, I know you people aren't complaining. My next review will be Amy's Choice for today, so I'll see you guys then.